The first gunshot came before Claire Bennett reached the front door. She froze beside her delivery van as rain erased the abandoned mansion's broken windows. Behind her, 1,000 white roses stood in silver buckets, their petals trembling with every roll of thunder over the Maine coast. The order had arrived that morning with no name, and $10,000 paid in advance. Deliver every rose before midnight. Come alone. Claire had almost refused. Then she had seen the overdue rent notice beneath her register. Now someone inside Blackwater house was shooting. A second crack shattered an upstairs window. Claire ducked behind the van. Her phone had no signal, the road was flooding, and the nearest occupied house was 2 miles away. She should have driven away. Then a man groaned inside. Claire hated that compassion always arrived before common sense. She pulled a tire iron from beneath the driver's seat, crossed the courtyard, and pushed open the front door. The foyer smelled of salt, wet wood, and blood. A crystal chandelier hung crooked above dusty marble. At the far end of the hall, a man in a black suit sat against the wall. His shirt dark beneath the ribs, a pistol rested in his hand. He looked up. His face was severe, sharpened by cold restraint. Rain had darkened his hair, and blood traced his temple. Yet his grey eyes were calm and terrifyingly alert. "Leave," he said. His quiet voice frightened her more than shouting would have. "You're bleeding." I noticed. Another man lay behind an overturned table. He was older, silver-haired, wearing a torn shirt beneath a federal protective vest. He moved. "Help him," Claire said. The wounded stranger's gaze held hers. "Walk toward him, and you become part of this." I became part of it when someone fired through the window. Something shifted in his expression, as though defiance was a language he had not expected from her. Claire crossed the foyer. The older man was barely breathing. She knelt, found a weak pulse, and pressed her hand over the wound beneath his vest. His eyes opened. They fixed on her with such shock that Claire glanced behind her. "What?" He lifted a trembling hand toward her face. Rosemary's eyes. Claire went cold. Rosemary had been her mother's name. "You knew my mother." The man in black stood despite his wound. He was taller than she had realized, broad-shouldered beneath a tailored coat. His gun pointed down, but Claire knew that could change in half a second. The older man coughed. "Claire Bennett. How do you know my name?" He pulled a tarnished silver locket from his vest. Claire recognized it before he opened it. Her mother had worn the matching half until the day she died. Inside was a photograph of Claire at 6, sitting between buckets of wildflowers in her mother's first shop. "No," Claire whispered. "My name in witness protection was Thomas Vale," he said. "Before that, I was Samuel Bennett." The storm seemed to disappear. Claire had been told Samuel Bennett drowned 24 years ago. The man before her was thinner and older than the photographs, but now she saw the scar through his eyebrow and the uneven dimple Claire knew from her own reflection. "My father is dead." The words sounded childish the moment she said them. Her mother had spent years defending a ghost, insisting Samuel had loved them even after the sea took him. Claire had buried both grief and anger beside an empty grave. "I needed you to believe that," he said. "It was the only way to keep you alive." Behind her, the armed man said, "Samuel, don't." For the first time, his voice contained fear. Samuel looked past her. "She deserves the truth, Dante." The name moved through Claire's memory, like a shadow from a news report. Dante Russo, Chicago crime lord. A man prosecutors never convicted because witnesses vanished, evidence burned, and juries changed their minds. She was kneeling between a federal witness and one of the most feared mafia bosses in America. Samuel forced the locket into her palm. "Rosehaven belongs to you now. The house, the harbor, everything beneath it. I don't understand. 5 families buried their secrets there. Ledgers, recordings, names enough to destroy them all." Dante stepped closer. "Samuel," but Claire's father tightened his grip. "Do not let them marry you for the property," he rasped. "And do not trust the man who sent me away." His eyes shifted toward Dante. Claire looked up at the Mafia Boss. Dante's face became perfectly still. Samuel exhaled once, then never breathed again. Before Claire could scream, headlights swept across the windows. One black SUV entered the courtyard, then another, then 6 more. Dante crossed the distance between them, caught Claire around the waist, and dragged her behind a marble column as bullets tore through the front doors. His body covered hers. His mouth brushed her ear. "They came for your inheritance," he said, "and now the only way I can keep you alive is to make you my wife." The marble column split above Claire's head. Dante forced her lower, one arm around her waist, while his other hand fired twice through the ruined doorway. 2 men outside dropped behind and SUV. He had not flinched. "Can you run?" he asked. "My father just died." "I know. No, you don't." Something moved behind his eyes, then vanished. The doors groaned beneath another burst of gunfire. Dante pulled a black phone from his coat. "North entrance compromised. Seal the harbor road." "I want 1 vehicle alive," a voice answered immediately. "Stay behind me," he said. "You think I'm going anywhere with you?" A bullet struck the floor between her knees. Dante caught her hand. His grip was warm, bloody, and absolute. "You can hate me after sunrise." He dragged her through a corridor of rotting portraits. Claire clutched Samuel's locket. Dante stopped twice, listened, then changed direction before armed shadows crossed the hall. He knew the house. At the corridor's end, he pushed aside a bookcase and revealed stone steps descending into darkness. Claire stopped. No. Rainwater ran from his hair into the blood at his collar. "You have 3 choices. The tunnel, the men outside, or the ocean. You forgot the police. The nearest deputy has been paid by the Moretti family for 8 years. You expect me to believe that. I expect you to survive long enough to verify it." Gunfire erupted behind them. Dante shoved her into the passage and pulled the bookcase closed. Darkness swallowed them. His hand found the back of her neck, guiding rather than forcing. Now they descended until the attack became a distant vibration in the stone. "You knew my father was here," Claire said. "Yes. You knew he was alive while my mother died, believing he abandoned us." His steps slowed. "Your mother knew." Claire stopped. "What?" Dante turned in the narrow passage. There was barely room between them. "She helped create Samuel's death certificate." "No. She chose the story that gave you a normal childhood." Claire slapped him. The sound cracked through the tunnel. Dante's face turned with the impact. He did not lift his hand or step back. "You don't get to tell me what kind of childhood I had." "No," he said quietly. "I don't." For one suspended second, anger became something harder to name. He was close enough that she felt the heat of him in the freezing passage. His gaze dropped to her mouth, then lifted. A metal door slammed somewhere behind them. Dante's expression hardened. They found the tunnel. He caught her wrist and ran. The passage opened into a sea cave, where waves exploded against black rock. A motorboat waited beside a rusted platform. 2 armed men stood aboard. Claire pulled back. "Those are my men," Dante said. "That's not reassuring." One guard offered his coat. Dante wrapped it around Claire's shoulders and fastened it himself. The gesture was almost gentle. Then he turned and shot a man emerging from the tunnel. Claire screamed. Dante pushed her into the boat as bullets struck the cave wall. He climbed in after her and covered her with his body while the boat tore into the storm. Blackwater House vanished behind sheets of rain. Minutes later, flames rose from its western wing. "My father is still inside." No, a second boat emerged beneath the cliffs. Samuel's body lay under a dark canvas, guarded by 2 men. Dante had arranged it before leaving. Claire hated him for thinking of what she could not. She hated herself for being grateful. They reached a hidden dock below a cliffside estate before dawn. The house above was made of glass and grey stone, facing the sea. Inside, Dante's people moved in silence. A doctor approached him, but Dante pointed to Claire first. "Check her. I'm not injured." "You were inside a shooting. So were you." His shirt was almost black with blood. Claire removed his coat and dropped it on a chair. "I'm leaving." Every man in the room became still. Dante stood 10 feet away, pale but upright. "No, you don't own me." "No, but 5 families believe you possess evidence that can destroy them. Until I know who ordered tonight's attack, you do not leave this house." "You mean your prison?" "I mean the only building on this coast they cannot enter." A silver-haired attorney entered carrying a leather case. "Miss Bennett, I'm Arthur Hale. I represented your father." Claire gripped a chair. "Then tell me the truth." Arthur removed a sealed document. "Rosehaven transfers to you upon Samuel Bennett's death. But the inheritance contains a survivorship clause. If you die unmarried, ownership passes to 5 designated trustees." He laid 5 photographs on the table. 5 men, 5 families. Claire looked at Dante. "My father built a trap. He built leverage," Dante said. Arthur placed one final document beside the photographs. "There is one way to prevent the transfer immediately." Claire read the heading, Spousal Succession Amendment. Her pulse slowed with horror. Dante approached. "If you marry me," he said, "killing you gives them nothing, and gives you everything." His eyes held hers. Yes, outside, thunder rolled over the black ocean. Claire realized the most dangerous man in the room was also the only one trying to keep her alive. Claire stared at the succession document until the words blurred. "If I refuse?" she asked. Arthur Hale closed the leather case. "The trustees can petition for control of Rosehaven by morning. Once inside, they will remove whatever your father hid there." "And then?" Dante answered. "Then they kill you." Anyway, his tone was so calm that Claire wanted to throw something at him. "You say that like you're discussing weather. Panic will not improve your odds." Blood had soaked through his shirt again, but he ignored the doctor waiting beside him. Arthur slid the agreement toward her. "The marriage can be limited to 6 months. Ownership remains yours, while Mr. Russo receives temporary authority over threats to the estate." Claire looked at Dante. "You already planned this. I planned every option after Samuel contacted me. My father expected to die. He expected betrayal. From you?" Silence settled over the room. Dante removed his gun, placed it on the table, and pushed it beyond his reach. The gesture did not make him less dangerous. "I sent Samuel into hiding 24 years ago," he said. "That is true." "Why?" "Someone sold his identity to men who wanted him dead." "Who?" "I don't know yet." Claire laughed without humor. "You expect me to marry you while refusing to answer the only question that matters." "I expect you to stay alive long enough to hate the answer." Arthur opened a second folder. "You may add conditions." Claire pulled out a chair. Dante watched her sit. "You're considering it." "I'm considering how much trouble I can legally cause you." One corner of his mouth almost moved. She took the pen. "Condition 1. You do not own my shop." "Agreed. You do not fire my employees or turn the place into an armed compound." "I will not interfere with operations." "That was not what I said." His eyes narrowed. "No visible weapons inside." "No weapons at all. No, then no marriage." The room went still. Dante leaned both hands on the table. "Men shot through a mansion to reach you 3 hours ago. And if customers see rifles beside the hydrangeas, I lose the life I built before you appeared. That life no longer exists." Claire rose, knocking over the chair. "You do not get to decide that." He studied her for a long moment. "Concealed protection," he said. "Outside only." It was the first time he had yielded. Claire wrote it down. "Second, you do not enter my bedroom without permission, unless there is an immediate threat. Permission." "Claire." "Dante." Arthur lowered his eyes, hiding a smile. Dante's jaw tightened. "Unless there is an immediate threat," she added the exception. "Third, you do not lie to me." This time he did not answer. Claire set down the pen. "That one is not negotiable. There are truths that could endanger you." "Then tell me they are dangerous. Do not tell me they are false." Something shifted in his face. Recognition, perhaps. "All right, you swear?" "I do not swear things lightly. Neither do I," she signed. Arthur turned the document toward Dante. He looked only at Claire. You understand what this means? It means 6 months. It means every enemy I have will see you as mine. I am not yours. His gaze dropped to her left hand. No, he said. But they will believe you are. He signed. The doctor finally forced him into a chair and cut open his blood-soaked shirt. Claire turned away too late. The wound along his ribs was deep. Old scars crossed his chest and shoulder, proof of a life survived through violence. Dante noticed her looking. Disappointed? That depends. Do all mafia bosses require this much stitching? Only the careless ones. You walked into a house full of gunmen. I walked in for Samuel, the answer silenced her. Arthur arranged for a county judge to perform the civil ceremony at 9. Until then, Claire was moved upstairs with guards outside both exits. She did not sleep. At dawn, she opened her door and found Dante sitting on the floor outside. His back rested against the wall. His side was bandaged beneath a clean black shirt. A pistol lay across his thigh. You have guards, she said. I don't trust them yet. They work for you. That does not make them trustworthy. Did you sit here all night? Yes. Why? His eyes lifted to hers. Because you stopped shaking when you heard me outside. She had not realized he noticed. For one dangerous second, neither moved. Then Arthur appeared with the judge. The ceremony took less than 4 minutes. No flowers, no music, no promises beyond the legal words. When Dante placed the plain gold band on Claire's finger, his hand paused around hers. His thumb brushed once over her knuckle before he let go. The almost tender gesture frightened her more than his gun. Arthur gathered the certificate. It is done, he said. The window behind him exploded. Dante moved before the sound reached Claire. He drove her to the floor and covered her body as a bullet buried itself in the wall where her head had been. His blood warmed her shoulder. Above them, Dante aimed at the shattered glass. Now, he said against her hair, they know exactly what you are to me. Dante fired once through the shattered window. A black sedan vanished down the cliff road. Stay down, he ordered. Claire pushed against his chest. You're bleeding again. It isn't mine. She looked at the red spreading beneath his bandage. You are a terrible liar. His eyes met hers. The accusation landed harder than she expected. Dante rose and turned to his men. Seal every road within 10 miles. Find the shooter before the police hear about this. The police should hear about it, Claire said. They will hear the version that keeps you alive. You promised not to lie. To you, he said, not to corrupt deputies. By noon, Dante had decided they were returning to Bellwether. The safe house was compromised, Rosehaven unsecured, and her flower shop sat in the center of town, surrounded by witnesses. He called it strategic exposure. Claire called it using her life as bait. 3 black salves followed them into Bellwether, where curtains moved in every window. Dante sat beside her in a charcoal suit, looking untouched by the reopened wound. His wedding ring seemed strange on a man whose watch cost more than her house. You could tell people you're a security consultant, Claire said. No one would believe that. They might if you stopped looking like you order executions before breakfast. I wait until after coffee. She turned toward him. He was serious. Claire hated the laugh that escaped her. Dante looked at her as though the sound surprised him. Then the car stopped outside Bennett Bloom's. 6 guards were positioned along the street. You agreed to concealed protection. The weapons are concealed. One man is standing beside my chalkboard with a rifle under his coat. The rifle is concealed. Dante. He opened her door. Every person inside the bakery across the street was watching. Claire stepped out, and Dante placed one hand at the small of her back. Possessive. Deliberate. Take your hand off me. No. We are not performing. We are always performing now. A phone camera flashed across the street. Dante turned. The reporter lowered it immediately. Claire entered the shop before she slapped her new husband in public. Inside, water stains spread across the ceiling. Shelves leaned beneath buckets of lilies. Her assistant, Nora, stood behind the counter gripping pruning shears. "Claire? I'm fine." Nora stared at Dante. "That does not explain him, my husband." A vase slipped from Nora's hand and shattered. By afternoon, the entire town knew. Customers arrived, for flowers they did not need. Women whispered beside the carnations. Teenagers photographed the Suvs. Dante remained in the back office, speaking on the phone. Yet Claire felt him watching. Whenever the door opened, his gaze lifted. Whenever a stranger moved too quickly, one of his men stepped closer. At 5, the damaged ceiling groaned. Dante removed his jacket and climbed a ladder. "What are you doing?" Claire asked. "Preventing the roof from collapsing on my wife." "You have people for that. They are hunting the shooter." He rolled up his sleeves and spent the next hour replacing warped boards above pink peonies, though every movement pulled at his injured side. Claire handed him nails. "You know how to repair roofs? I know how to repair most things, except trust." He looked down at her. "No," he said. "I have never been good at that." That evening, Dante moved upstairs. He checked every window, replaced the back lock, stationed 2 guards across the street, then opened her refrigerator. "You have mustard, half a lemon, and champagne." The champagne was for a wedding order. The mustard, emotional support. He cooked pasta from groceries one of his men delivered. Claire watched him slice garlic with the same precision he used to hold a gun. "Who taught you?" "My mother." The answer was unexpectedly soft. "Where is she?" "Dead." Claire did not ask how. They ate at the kitchen table while rain touched the windows. Dante's knees nearly brushed hers. For several minutes, there were no guns or inheritance, only a man and a woman, pretending marriage was not a weapon placed between them. That night, Claire dreamed of Blackwater House. She woke with Samuel's final breath trapped in her ears. Light glowed beneath her door. When she opened it, Dante sat in the hallway with his back against the wall. His gun rested beside him. "You have a room," she whispered. "I know. Why are you here? You cried out. You could have knocked. You told me not to enter." The fact that he had obeyed unsettled her. Claire sat on the floor opposite him. Neither spoke. When her breathing steadied, she returned to bed. Near dawn, she went downstairs for water. A light burned in the back office. Dante stood beside her desk, holding a photograph. Claire recognized it instantly. She was 17, laughing beneath the town clock. With her mother, only 3 copies had existed. One was buried with rosemary. One remained locked in Claire's bedroom. The 3rd had vanished the week Samuel was declared dead. Dante looked up. For the first time, the calm left his face. Claire closed the office door behind her. "Tell me," she said, "why you have been carrying a photograph of me for 15 years. Dante did not put the photograph down. Rain traced the office window behind him, turning the glass into Blackwater. "Samuel gave it to me," he said. "When? 15 years ago." Claire's throat tightened. "Why?" "He believed someone was watching you. So he gave my photograph to a mafia boss. He gave me a responsibility. You carried it for 15 years. Dante's gaze lowered to the image of 17-year-old Claire laughing in sunlight. Yes, that was not the question. For once he had no answer. Claire stepped closer. "Did you watch me? I made sure you were alive." "How?" "People near the shop. Reports from town. Cameras on the roads after your mother died." Cold spread through her. "You put me under surveillance. I kept threats away from you, without my consent. You were a child. I have not been a child for 14 years. His jaw hardened. "The danger did not end when you turned 18. Neither did your control." Dante placed the photograph on the desk with great care. "You want every answer. They are at Rosehaven. Then take me there." "No. You married me because that estate belongs to me." "I married you because men are trying to kill you, and now you decide which parts of my inheritance I may see." His eyes went cold. Claire held his stare. At last, Dante reached for his jacket. "We leave in 10 minutes. Rosehaven stood north of Bellwether, where dark pines bent toward the sea. Unlike ruined Blackwater House, It was intact, a grey stone mansion surrounded by dormant gardens and iron gates. 3 subs entered first. Guards searched the grounds while Dante kept Claire beside him beneath a shared umbrella. A white rosebush climbed the front wall, still blooming despite the cold. "My mother planted that," Claire said. "Samuel kept the gardeners employed after she died." Inside, sheets covered the furniture. Claire passed a nursery with faded blue walls, then stopped before a height chart carved into the doorframe. Claire, age 4. Her father had preserved the mark. Grief rose so quickly she could not hide it. Dante reached toward her shoulder, stopped inches away, then lowered his hand. The restraint hurt more than comfort might have. "The vault is below the wine cellar," he said. They descended beneath the house. The steps ended before racks of empty bottles and one brick wall that looked older than the rest. Claire opened Samuel's locket. Inside the back cover was a pattern of 5 roses. Dante pressed 5 bricks in the same sequence. The wall shifted inward. Behind it waited a steel door. Claire entered her mother's birthday. Locks released one after another. The room beyond was not a vault, it was a life. Photographs covered one wall, Claire at school, Claire closing the flower shop, Claire beside her mother's grave, Claire asleep against a train window. Some had been taken from far away. Others were close enough to make her skin crawl. Shelves held files marked with 5 Mafia family names. Screens displayed harbor maps, bank transfers, judges, officers, and government agents. At the center sat a folder bearing her name. Claire opened it. Medical records, tax returns, former employees, every apartment, every man she had dated, even Cole's file was thicker than the others. She turned to Dante. "Was this my father's work or yours?" "Both." The admission struck like a blow. "You knew who I slept beside. You knew when I was sick. You knew when I was afraid. And you never came to me. Coming near you would have exposed you. Yet you kept my photograph." His expression changed. Barely, but Claire saw it. "This stopped being an assignment," she whispered. Dante moved closer. "Do not confuse protection with sentiment. You spent 15 years pretending not to care. I spent 15 years making sure my enemies never learned that I did." The words hung between them. His hand rose, hovering near her cheek. Claire stopped breathing. Danton's fingers almost touched her skin. Then a guard entered. "Sir." Someone breached the east gate. The moment shattered. Dante turned, gun already in his hand. A man's voice echoed from the cellar. Claire, she knew it before she saw him. Even Cole stepped through the doorway, wearing a rain-darkened coat, his brown hair longer than she remembered. 2 guards held his arms. Claire's heart lurched with old pain. Her former fiancé looked at the ring on her hand, then at Dante. "So it's true," Ivan said. "You married him. You disappeared 6 months before our wedding. I was trying to protect you." Dante's laugh contained no humor. "That line is taken." Ivan pulled a folded document from his coat. "Samuel contacted me before he died. He said Claire would need proof." Dante's men searched the paper before passing it to her. Claire unfolded it. The document authorized Samuel Bennett's removal from Bellwether and permanent separation from his wife and daughter. At the bottom was Dante Russo's signature. Claire looked up. Every fragile piece of trust inside her broke at once. Ivan stepped closer. "He did not save your father," he said. "He was the man who ordered him erased." Claire read Dante's signature twice. "Tell me it's forged," she said. Dante stood beside the hidden vault, his face unreadable. "It isn't." Ivan moved closer, but Dante's guard blocked him with one arm. Claire held up the order. "You signed a command to remove my father from my life. Yes. My mother waited 24 years for a man you knew was alive. She knew why he left. You keep saying that as though it makes any of this merciful." Danton's gaze hardened. "Mercy had nothing to do with it. What did? Survival." Claire laughed, once broken and bitter. "You chose for all of us. I chose the option that kept you breathing. You watched me bury my mother. You watched me cancel my wedding. You watched every year of my life from behind cameras and men in dark cars. His silence confirmed everything. Evan looked at her gently. Claire, you don't have to stay here. Dante turned toward him. The temperature in the vault seemed to drop. You will not speak to my wife. She was almost my wife before you trapped her. Dante crossed the room so quickly that 2 guards stepped between them. Claire caught his wrist. Don't? He stopped. Because of her, his pulse beat hard beneath her fingers. His eyes lowered to where she touched him, then lifted to her face. Claire released him. I want the truth, she said. All of it. Dante dismissed everyone except Claire. Even protested, but the steel door closed between them. For several seconds, Dante said nothing. Then he removed his gun and placed it on the table. Samuel discovered that someone inside federal protection was selling witness identities. He came to me because the leak had ties to the Russo organization. And you forced him to disappear. I gave him 2 choices. Leave Bellwether alone or stay and watch you die. Claire's eyes burned. Who was the traitor? I never found proof. That is another lie. His jaw tightened. She saw it. You know who it was. I know who Samuel suspected. Tell me. No, the word struck harder than a confession. Claire backed away. Then our agreement is over. You cannot leave Rosehaven. You promised not to lie to me. I promised not to give you false answers. I did not promise to hand you a name that could get you killed. You always find a way to make control sound like protection. And you always mistake freedom for safety. Her palm struck his face before she thought. Dante did not move. The red mark rose slowly against his cheek. His voice lowered. Do it again if it helps. Claire's anger collapsed into grief. I don't want to hurt you. For the first time, something raw entered his eyes. That makes one of us. She stared at him. He looked away. The sentence had not meant what it sounded like. It had meant he was already hurting himself. And both of them knew it. Claire turned toward the door. Dante caught her hand, not roughly, almost desperately. Do not go with Ivan. Why? He left you once. So did my father. I am not discussing Samuel. No. You are hiding behind him. His grip tightened, then loosened. What do you want from me? She whispered. Dante looked at the wedding ring on her hand. Something I have no right to ask for. Her breath stopped. His thumb brushed the inside of her wrist. He leaned closer, close enough that the space between them became unbearable. For 1 second, Claire thought he would kiss her. Instead, he stepped back. Go upstairs, he said. I will have the evidence moved. The dismissal broke whatever fragile thing had formed. Claire opened the door, even weighted beyond it. I'm leaving, she said. Dante's voice came from behind her. No, she turned. You do not own me. His expression became cold again, but the cold no longer fooled her. No, he said. I am trying not to lose you. Claire's heart betrayed her with one painful beat. Then she walked away. Dante's men did not stop her. He had ordered them not to touch her unless she was in immediate danger. And Claire used his own rule against him. Even drove her toward Bellwether through thickening fog. For the first mile, neither spoke. Then Claire noticed the black sedan 3 turns behind them. Dante is following us. Of course he is, Even said. He has never understood the word no. Claire looked at the document in her lap. Where did you get this? Samuel mailed it to me. Why would he trust you after you abandoned me? Even's hands tightened on the wheel. I didn't abandon you, I was forced out. By Dante? Yes. The answer came too quickly. Even smiled, but it was not the smile she remembered. She reached for the door handle. It did not move. The locks clicked. Even. He turned off the coastal road and accelerated toward the abandoned harbor. Behind them, the black sedan disappeared when an 18-wheeler blocked the intersection. Claire's pulse climbed. Unlock the door. I'm sorry, he said. He reached into the console and removed a small black device. On its screen was a map of Rosehaven, with a red mark beneath the eastern foundation. I didn't come back because I still love you. Clara, his voice had lost all warmth. I came back because only Samuel Bennett's daughter can open the vault beneath that house. Fog swallowed the abandoned harbor. Even drove through a chain-link gate and stopped beside a warehouse where rusted cranes leaned over Blackwater. Claire reached for the door, but he pressed a gun against her ribs. "Don't make me hurt you. You already did that 6 months ago." Inside, 3 armed men waited beside a steel table. One wore the Moretti crest on his ring. Claire understood. "You sold my father's location." Even removed her phone and wedding ring. "I sold information. I didn't know they would send killers. You knew enough to run. I was supposed to marry you, inherit Rosehaven, and open the vault. Then Dante interfered. Every promise beneath the flower shop awning had been false." "Did you ever love me?" He looked away. One of the men strapped Claire to a chair. Even placed Samuel's locket against a scanner, but the device flashed red. "The vault needs her voice and blood," he said. Claire stared at him. "You don't know where the entrance is." His expression sharpened. She had guessed correctly. Samuel's maps were false. The real vault was still hidden. Outside, an engine roared through the fog. The warehouse doors opened. A black car stopped alone in the rain. Dante stepped out without a coat. No convoy followed him. No guards. Only a pistol held low at his side. Even laughed. The great Dante Russo came alone. Dante's eyes found Claire. To the men around him he remained cold. To her the fear was unmistakable. "Let her go." "You missed an important council vote," Even replied. "By midnight the Morettis will own 3 of your ports." Dante kept walking. "I have more ports. You'll lose Chicago. I have more cities." Even raised his gun toward Claire. Dante stopped. For the first time since Claire had met him, he looked powerless. "What do you want?" "The Rosehaven evidence, your harbor codes, and a statement that Claire married you under coercion." "No," Claire said. Even pressed the gun beneath her jaw. Dante's calm broke. "Take it away from her." His voice shook through the warehouse with enough fury to silence every man. Even smiled. "There he is. Give me the codes." Dante recited 12 numbers. A Moretti man checked a tablet and nodded. "You just surrendered $40 million, Even said. Dante looked only at Claire. "I can replace money. And her." "No." The word struck deeper than any confession. Claire saw a shadow cross the catwalk above the loading bay. Dante had not come alone. He had simply arrived first. She kicked the steel table. The scanner crashed. Gunfire erupted. Dante crossed the warehouse before Claire could breathe. He shot the man beside her, overturned the chair, and covered her as glass exploded above them. His hand found the back of her head. "Are you hurt?" "No, Claire, no." He cut the restraints. His hands were steady until he saw the bruises around her wrists. Then they began to shake. Dante touched one mark with his thumb. "I should have stopped you from leaving. You would have had to imprison me." "I considered it." A broken laugh escaped her. His forehead touched hers for one brief second. "I lost sight of your car," he whispered. For 11 minutes, the confession sounded like an injury. Claire lifted her hand toward his face, but footsteps thundered behind them. Dante turned and fired. Even fled through a side door toward the docks. Claire tried to follow, but Dante caught her around the waist. "Let him go. He betrayed my father, and he wants you angry enough to chase him." A shot came from the fog. Dante pulled Claire behind a shipping container. His men closed around the warehouse. But Even had reached a speedboat. Before climbing aboard, he raised a phone. Every screen in the warehouse came alive. A recorded image showed Rosehaven and Bellwether's seaside church. Even's voice filled the room. "You can hide her, Dante, but the 5 families will never accept a private marriage. Bring her to the church. Renew the vows publicly before their witnesses." Dante's arm tightened around Claire. "Or what? Or I release Samuel's files, name Claire as the source, and let every government agency and crime family in America hunt her." The speedboat vanished into the fog. Dante faced Claire. Rain ran through his hair and across the blood on his collar. "You are not going near that church. If I don't, this never ends." I said no. "And I am still not your property." His jaw tightened. Claire stepped closer. You came here alone because you were afraid for me. I came because it was necessary. You gave away your ports. They are replaceable. You said I wasn't. Danton looked at her as if she had forced him toward an edge. Then his hand closed around the back of her neck. He almost kissed her. Claire felt the heat of his breath, the tension in every part of him, but he stopped. When this is over, he said, you will leave me. It was not a command. It was the thing he feared most. Before Claire could answer, his phone rang. Dante listened, and his face turned to stone. What happened? He ended the call and looked toward the distant church tower above the fog. The 5 families accepted Evan's terms. His gaze returned to hers. They want a wedding in 48 hours. The church bells began before sunrise. From the upstairs window of Bennett Bloom's, Claire watched black salves take positions around the square. Guards searched rooftops, drains, flower crates, and parked cars. Bellwether no longer looked like home. Dante stood behind her, speaking into an earpiece. No one enters the church without being searched twice. Lock the bell tower. Put 2 men beneath the altar and 4 at the harbor doors. Claire turned. You make marriage sound romantic. This is not a marriage. The answer came fast. Dante removed the earpiece and met her eyes in the glass. It is a trap. Those can be the same thing. Something softened in his face, then vanished. For 2 days, they prepared a ceremony meant to convince 5 mafia families that Claire belonged beside him. Reporters, judges, politicians, and criminal representatives arrived under guard. Dante chose nothing about the flowers. Claire chose 1,000 white roses, the same number that had led her to Blackwater House and Samuel's death. Nora helped arrange them along the aisle, unaware that half the guests expected blood before the vows ended. You don't have to do this, Nora whispered. Claire looked toward the altar. Dante stood there in a black suit, while men twice his age waited for his instructions. Everyone feared him. Yet whenever Claire moved, his attention followed. I think I do. That afternoon, Dante took her to Rosehaven to sign the final inheritance papers. The mansion had become a command center. Maps covered the dining room as rain moved like smoke across the ocean. Arthur Hale placed several documents before them. Once the vows are renewed publicly, the trustees lose any claim to Rosehaven. Even if Claire dies, the evidence transfers to federal custody. Dante looked at him. She will not die, Claire signed. Later she found Dante beside the white rosebush her mother had planted. You've been avoiding me, she said. I have been working. You sleep outside my door and call it strategy. You give away ports and call it necessity. You nearly kiss me and call it nothing. His gaze settled on hers. What would you prefer I call it? The truth. Rain struck the stone terrace. Dante stepped closer. I have spent 15 years knowing where you were. That is not an answer. I knew when you opened the shop, when your mother became ill, when Evan proposed, when you cried alone after he left. Claire's voice shook. Why didn't you come? Because men like me do not enter a woman's life without destroying it. And yet here you are. Yes, the word held no pride, only surrender. His hand rose and touched a damp strand of hair near her cheek. The contact was so careful it hurt. You were supposed to be a promise I kept to Samuel, he said. Then you became the first thing I looked for in every report. The first name I asked about after every war, the one weakness I never allowed anyone to see. Claire stopped breathing. Dante, he withdrew his hand. No, you were about to say something. I was about to make tomorrow harder. You think I am leaving after the ceremony. I know you should. That isn't the same thing. He looked toward the sea. If you stay, every enemy I make will study how to reach you. Every kindness I show you will become a weapon. And if I leave, his jaw tightened. I will make sure no one follows. Claire understood. He had planned her freedom. She found the proof that evening. Beneath the security maps in his study lay a signed annulment petition. Dante had surrendered every claim to Rosehaven and arranged a new identity, an Oregon house, and enough money for Claire to disappear. He had prepared to lose her before asking her to stay. Dante entered. Claire held up the papers. "When were you going to tell me? After the wedding?" "You decided where I would live. I created an option. You created another life without asking whether I wanted it." His face remained still, but his eyes did not. "What do you want, Claire?" She crossed the room until only inches separated them. "I want one thing in my life not to be decided by a dead father, a former fiancé, or a man who thinks loving me gives him the right to disappear." The last words changed his expression. "Loving you, you tell me." For once, Dante Russo had no weapon, no order, and no answer. Claire placed her hand against his chest. His heartbeat was violent beneath her palm. He covered her hand with his. Then someone knocked. A guard entered carrying a white box. It was delivered to the shop. No courier, no prince. Dante opened it. Inside lay a single white rose with a rifle bullet pushed through its center. Claire lifted the card beneath it. Her name was engraved across the brass casing. Dante took the bullet from her hand. The cold vanished from his face, replaced by something far more dangerous. "Cancel the ceremony," he said. Claire looked toward the church bells ringing through the storm. "No," he turned to her. "Even wants me afraid. You should be afraid. I am." She placed the bullet in his palm. "But tomorrow, I am still walking down that aisle." His fingers closed around the metal. "Then tomorrow," he said, "no one in that church will breathe without my permission." By noon, Bellwether's seaside church was surrounded by black vehicles. Rain bent the white roses lining the stone steps. Armed men stood beneath umbrellas as judges, politicians, and representatives of 5 mafia families passed through security. Claire waited inside the vestry wearing an ivory silk dress. Nora had altered overnight. It was not the wedding gown she had once chosen for Even. This one had no veil and no promise of innocence. Dante entered. He stopped when he saw her. For several seconds, the feared man who commanded the entire church said nothing. Claire touched the plain gold band on her finger. "You look disappointed." "No." His gaze moved over her, then returned to her face. "I am trying to remember how to breathe." The admission was so quiet she almost missed it. He wore black with no visible weapon, though Claire knew there was a pistol at his back. "You can still cancel this," he said. "So can you. I tried. You ordered me to. I was afraid." The word sounded foreign in his mouth. "Of Even, of watching you die." Claire took his hand. Dante looked down at their joined fingers. "I cannot promise you a peaceful life," he said. "I cannot promise I will become a good man. I never asked you to. I can promise that no one will reach you without going through me." That sounds less like a vow than a threat. "To everyone else it is," the bells began. Dante lifted her hand toward his lips, then stopped as if even now he feared, taking something she had not freely given. Claire closed the distance herself. His mouth brushed her knuckles. The church doors opened. 1,000 white roses filled the nave. Beyond them sat men who had ordered murders, hidden fortunes, and bought courtrooms. Every head turned toward Claire. Dante walked beside her instead of waiting at the altar. It was a message she would not cross the aisle alone. Arthur Hale stood near the front pew. Nora cried behind him. Guards watched every window and archway. The priest began. Dante's thumb moved once over Claire's hand. "Look at me," he whispered. She did. The dangerous world disappeared behind his grey eyes. When asked to repeat his vow, Dante ignored the card. "I was told to protect you," he said. "I mistook duty for control, because control was the only language I trusted." A murmur moved through the church. "You were never mine because I guarded you. You were never mine because you signed my name. You are here because you chose to stand beside me. If you choose differently tomorrow, I will still protect your right to leave." Claire's eyes burned. It was surrender, in front of men who believed surrender was weakness. The priest turned to her. "I spent my life believing love meant waiting for people who had already left," Claire said. "You taught me something more frightening." A faint smile touched Dante's mouth. What? That someone can stay and still be terrified. Then Claire saw it. A red point moved across the white roses behind Dante. It crossed his collar, then settled over her heart. Dante. His eyes changed. He saw the reflection in the silver cross and moved. The gunshot struck before Claire could breathe. Dante's body slammed into hers. They fell against the altar steps as stained glass exploded above them. For 1 second he remained over her. Then blood spread across his white shirt. No, Claire caught him as his knees gave way. Gunfire erupted from the choir loft. Guests dropped beneath pews. Dance men returned fire while the church doors slammed shut. Claire pressed both hands against the wound below his shoulder. Stay, with me. Dante looked at her as though the pain belonged to someone else. Are you hit? You were shot. Claire, I'm not hurt. Only then did he exhale. A figure appeared above the choir rail, Ivan. He held a rifle against the carved wood. You always step in front of what you love, he called down. That is why you were easy to aim. Dante reached for his gun. Claire stopped him. You'll bleed out. Move behind the altar. I am not leaving you. Ivan smiled. The next bullet is yours. A sharp click echoed beneath the floor. Then another. Red lights appeared under the pews. Explosive charges. Dante's face went still. Ivan lifted a transmitter. The shot was never the plan. It was only to make Dante kneel. Smoke poured through the locked side doors. Panic surged through the church. Claire looked at the old stone floor, then at the pattern of roses carved around the altar. She had seen it before, inside Samuel's locket. Rosehaven's tunnels did not end beneath the mansion. They continued beneath the coast, beneath the church. Claire pulled the locket from her dress and pressed it into the carved center stone. A mechanism turned below them. The altar shifted. Cold air rose from a hidden stairway. Dante stared at the opening. Claire wrapped his arm over her shoulders. My father built an escape. Ivan raised the transmitter, and I built a timer. Every red light changed at once. 60 seconds. Claire dragged Dante toward the stairs as the church began to count down. 59 seconds. Claire pulled Dante down the hidden stairs as his men rushed guests into the passage. Above them, pews overturned and smoke filled the church. Seal the altar, Dante ordered. No, Claire said. People are still inside. Blood ran between her fingers where she pressed his wound. Then get them below. Arthur directed the last guests below as Ivan fired from the choir loft. The bullet struck the altar. Dante pushed Claire against the wall and returned fire with one hand. You can barely stand. I can stand long enough. Stop deciding that dying for me is romantic. His eyes locked on hers. I never thought it was romantic. Then what is it? The only choice I can live with. Claire grabbed his face. You do not get to call it living if you leave me alone. Fear flashed in his eyes. Then the church bell rang. 20 seconds. Claire saw carved roses pointing east along the passage. This tunnel leads to Rosehaven. Dante understood. Move, everyone. The final guests crossed below. Claire struck the release stone, sealing the altar. The explosion came 3 seconds later. The tunnel convulsed. Dante covered Claire as the shockwave threw them down. When the lights returned, he was motionless. Dante, his eyes opened slowly. I told you I could stand. You're lying down. A faint smile touched his mouth. Then a red light began blinking on the wall. Ivan's voice came through hidden speakers. Samuel built this passage to save witnesses. I rewired it to bury them. The ceiling groaned. Claire studied the rose pattern beside the nearest lamp. 5 petals, 5 tunnels. She pressed the second petal. A panel opened, revealing an old console and 5 steel switches marked with family crests. Arthur stared. The evidence network. Claire understood. The files were never stored in one vault. Ivan's voice sharpened. Do not touch those switches. Dante looked at her. If you release everything, 5 families fall, and everyone connected to them becomes a target. Yes. What would my father do? Dante softened. He would let you choose. For the first time, no man was deciding for her. Claire pulled all 5 switches. Lights turned green. Samuel's records began transmitting to federal agencies, courts, and newsrooms. Ivan shouted through the speakers. Then the console revealed his location. Bell Tower access chamber. Dante's men moved, but Claire stopped them. Alive. He answers for my father in court. Alive, Dante ordered. They found Ivan near the harbor exit, trapped between falling stone and the seawall. He raised his gun toward Claire. Dante stepped in front of her. This time Claire stepped beside him. No more, she said. Sirens closed in. With the evidence already public, no corrupt deputy could hide what had happened. Even lowered the gun. By sunset, federal agents had arrested him. Before morning, judges, police chiefs, and leaders were in custody. The surviving organizations turned on one another. Dante was taken to a private hospital. He survived surgery. When Claire entered his room later, annulment papers waited beside his bed. "You were shot at our wedding," she said. "Most husbands wait longer before leaving." Dante sat against white pillows, pale but awake. "The evidence is public. Rosehaven is secure. You no longer need my name." "You think that was why I stayed?" "I think fear can resemble love when danger is close." Claire took the papers. "I signed away every claim to the estate," he said. "The shop and house remain yours. No guards stay unless you ask. And you?" His voice was almost steady. "I will go wherever you cannot see me." Claire tore the papers in half. Dante stopped breathing. "You spent 15 years watching my life from a distance," she said. "You do not get to disappear now that I finally see you. I am not a good man. No, I will still want to control every door and every person who approaches you. Then you will learn to ask. I may fail. Then I will tell you." His hand closed around hers. "What are you choosing, Claire?" She leaned down and kissed him. Not because he had protected her, not because she owed him, because the choice was finally hers. 3 months later, Bennett Bloom's reopened beneath a new roof. There were no visible guards or black sovs. Only spring sunlight, white roses, and customers pretending not to stare at the feared man repairing a shelf. Dante had surrendered his ports and testified against the surviving families. He remained dangerous, but he was learning that devotion was not ownership. That evening, a storm rolled over Bellwether. Claire locked the shop and found him beneath the awning with one white rose. "No entourage?" she asked. "You said they frightened the customers. No gun?" "An unreasonable request," she smiled. "What do you want?" "To come home with my wife." Claire accepted the rose, but not his hand. "Ask properly." Dante looked at her as though the answer could destroy him. "Claire Bennett, Russo, will you let me stay?" She slipped her fingers through his. "Yes." Then they walked into the rain together, not as captor and prisoner, not as protector and obligation, but as two dangerous, imperfect people who had finally chosen the same door.